I would describe social anxiety as something that makes you really anxious when you're around people. It can be different types of situations. It might be large crowds. It just might be certain people that when you're around them, you get super anxious. You don't know what to say. You don't really know how to act. You feel like everybody's staring at you, whether they really are or not. To me, it feels really tight in my chest. Sometimes I have a hard time breathing. I have a hard time focusing, like my eyes don't focus on anything. I feel like I'm searching, maybe searching for danger, because it feels dangerous, even if it's not really dangerous. I think different types of personalities tend to have more anxiety than others. I think trauma can cause social anxiety. Situations that have gone bad or felt like they went bad can cause anxiety. And past memories can cause social anxiety. Strategies that can help social anxiety are maybe thinking about the situation ahead of time and coming up with a plan. Like sometimes I know that if I'm going to be really anxious in a situation, I'm going to focus on somebody else. Maybe if I'm going to a situation where there's going to be people I don't know, I might plan to go ahead and talk to somebody I don't know so that I can help them feel less anxious, because people in new situations tend to feel like they don't fit in. And so if I purposely help somebody else feel like they're fitting in, then I think less about my own anxiety. So coming up with a plan helps. I think people that don't have social anxiety think that it's silly, that just get over it, just don't feel anxious. And if it were that easy, I think we'd do it. But I also think that there are ways to stretch ourselves and put ourselves into situations that are hard, but we still do it anyway, and to not let what anybody else thinks bother us.
I would describe social anxiety as kind of the fear of being in crowds or being among other people or groups. So that could be like being in a mall or being at like a football game or something, but it also could be just as simple as, a sleepover with your friends or like a school dance. Just being kind of in a big group of people. Or other types of anxiety could feel very different for lots of people. So depending on who you are, it might be that when you're in an environment you're not comfortable with, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have this pimple on my nose. And that's all you can think of, is that everybody's going to see this pimple on my nose, right? So it might be that you're having perseverating thoughts and you can't really get them out of your head. That might be more like you're shaking and you're sweaty, your hands get really like kind of clammy. It might be a physical symptom like that. Your stomach might hurt, or you might just have all kinds of different symptoms like that. Cause or contribute to social anxiety. That could be, somebody who may just struggle with anxiety in general. Could also, have a hard time being in social settings. Or maybe somebody has had a really traumatic past experience in a group setting or with their peers. Maybe they've had an experience with bullying or something very uncomfortable that leads to this fear of like embarrassing themselves or being judged by other people. So probably, maybe a combination of those things even. When we're feeling, anxious in social settings. So first of all, I think that, something called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT as it's commonly known, can be very useful in managing anxiety, because that's kind of retraining your brain to focus on like, okay, maybe I do have this pimple on my nose, but what is that actually, embarrassing myself is probably not going to actually happen. And even if it does, it's not the end of the world, right? So that can be helpful. I think that mindfulness is always a good tactic. I think that breathing exercises or grounding exercises are all good things, that you can try to use and kind of have in your toolbox. So about social anxiety is that it may not necessarily be that they're afraid of being in like a big crowd, right? It might be that they're actually fine going to a mall or a big sporting event or a concert, but what they're more scared of is being perceived in a negative way by their peers. So that might just be that, they have no problem going into a big crowd, but they have a really hard time speaking up in class, right? Or going to their school's dance, or going to lunch and figuring out where they're going to sit and who they're going to sit next to.
It is actually considered a mental health disorder. So I pulled it up in this little handy book here called the DSM-5. So it's actually a mental health disorder, and it is when a person has such extreme anxiety about the thought of being around other people that it's almost debilitating. Like they can't function. Like you mentioned earlier that your heart was racing, right? That's kind of one of the symptoms that comes with social anxiety. So it's, again, just something that you get very anxious being in social situations. You're worried about people might think something's wrong with you, might think you're weird, you think they might be judging you, okay? So that's kind of like the main basis of social anxiety disorder. I think it's just a real difficult time being around people. I think it probably feels different in different people, but I think a lot of times it can be a physical feeling, like, the heart racing, your palms might be sweaty, you might feel real hot, your muscles might tense up. And then it's also part, the mental part is where you're thinking all those things. They probably think I'm weird. They might think I might not know what I'm doing. They might think that, I'm dressed funny, whatever it may be. So you've got those physical feelings inside, but you've also got the mental part where your brain is telling you these negative thoughts. Things for different people. I think some of it can be genetics, like if you have a family member or a parent that might have had social anxiety, then that might be something that's kind of passed down. Another thing with social anxiety, a lot of times people that had suffered like a traumatic event, like maybe they were bullied or something like that, that can cause them to have a lot of social anxiety. Anything that has caused some sort of stress in their life around people or social situations can a lot of times lead to this feeling of with that. And another thing, in addition to the therapy, sometimes if you kind of start gradually exposing yourself to the things that cause you anxiety, like being around people, hopefully you can kind of build up, I won't say like a tolerance to it, like it won't be so bad if you kind of just start, exposing yourself to it. If you're scared of going into a public place, maybe go into a public place, but a small place where there's like not a lot of people, okay? And then maybe next time that you go out, you can go into some place that's got more people. So just kind of gradually exposing yourself to that. And another thing, this is the one that you kind of hear me talk about the most, is like, using whatever skills that you have, whether it be your deep breathing, okay? That belly breathing to kind of help calm your system down. It could be mindfulness. I've probably heard me talk about those like apps that you can get on your phone, like the Calm app or Headspace. They do some guided meditations that kind of walk you through things that can kind of help you, with that social anxiety. And, you got to be, I'm sure you've heard like self-love. You've got to give yourself some grace, because if you have a lot of social anxiety and you beat yourself up every time you go out in public, right? Do you think that's helping your anxiety or probably making it worse? It's probably making it worse, right? So just be, kind and forgiving to yourself, and just, know that you're trying to make things better. You're trying to get over being around other people, With social anxiety, people just think that, they're shy or kind of antisocial. They don't want to be around people, right? Like I said, it's an actual diagnosable disorder. Now, I'm not saying that everybody that has social anxiety has a disorder, Okay, but if it gets to the point where it's debilitating, where you can't function in society around people, you probably want to go to the doctor at some point and get that checked out, because there could be more to it. And it's not something that you can just kind of get over, right? It's something that you're going to have to live with on a daily basis. Now, I'm not saying it can never be helped or can never get better, because it can, like we said, whether you do some therapy or whether you do those breathing and mindfulness techniques, whatever that may be. So it can get better.